So since I made a video yesterday about talking about my trans confusion, I wanted to make a video today talking about trans joy. And since it's like also a very cloudy, gray day today, I figured it would be positive for me as well. To talk about positive aspects of being trans and being queer. A lot of times generally as humans, we focus on the negative. But yeah. So I wrote a little list here. And ironically, a lot of things I kind of dislike or hate about being trans are also things that I've grown to love about being trans. So, for example, dysphoria is pretty heartbreaking. Can be debilitating. But on the other end, feelings of gender euphoria, I think, trans people have an appreciation for an understanding of their gender that most, if not all, cis people just wouldn't be able to grasp or understand. Not saying that, of course, cis people, I'm sure they get, satisfaction or for fulfilling their gender role, or that makes them feel comfortable, but there's something unique about being the euphoria, the sense of overwhelming joy that comes from being able to express something that you have had to keep hidden for so long, and we're told that that you might never be able to express that thing, or that you thought wasn't for you in this life. And then when you experience that thing, it just feels like magic. It feels unreal, and it's a truly beautiful thing. So yeah. The next thing is something I hated was people fundamentally misunderstanding my existence. Makes you feel, to just confuse people or have them not, see you for who you are, or just not understand what your experience is even all about, or understanding your humanity, or dehumanizing you. That's pretty heartbreaking. But as I've become more secure in myself, part of me just gets off on the fact that people will fundamentally misunderstand my existence, and I just look at them and I'm, can't help but just laugh or just think they're acting silly, because whatever they think that they see, the thing that they're attacking in me, it's like, this person doesn't even exist. This shadow that they're fighting with, it's like, what a waste of effort and energy this person is putting into, and it doesn't say anything about me personally. Don't get me wrong, I still, can still affect me, or can still get down about it, or it can hurt my feelings. I'm, just a person. But yeah, I don't let it seep into my core, or internalize it, super heavily, because, you know, they fundamentally misunderstand me. And that also just makes me feel, untouchable at times. Like if we're on such different wavelengths, then, you know, yeah. Plus, there's just a niche satisfaction you can get from confusing cis people, um, or conservatives or whatever. Um, and yeah, I don't mean to say that to like put down anyone who's just like confused or like wants to understand. That's a different thing entirely. Um, and thus they could learn over time, come to see queer people for who they are. But yeah, it's also like a natural filter for people who are going to see beyond appearances or like judge you. There's a lot of false pretenses in this human world, and when you fall so far out of the norm, especially with something like gender that is so like policed and so like divisive, especially like right now, it's such a hot issue. When you fall so far outside of what is traditionally acceptable, you can really weed out the real ones, so to speak. Yeah, and that can feel like heavy. I can feel like rejection, but you know, especially, yeah. But yeah, I think this kind of piggybacks on the last point I made. It's like not fitting in with this wider group of people gives me a greater sense of community and fitting in and a shared experience with this smaller set of people. The joy of the community and the mutual support in the queer community is such a gift. To know that I could go into like any, major city, or not even major city. I could go to like most cities and, be like, yo, where are the queers at? And find a community of people that, I would have a tremendous amount in common with, at least more so than like the general population. Like it can be really hard to find people with common interests, but like that kind of natural uh not selector kind of just gathers a lot of people that have like a lot in common and a huge shared experience. So that like sense of community and sense of shared yeah, I mean, there's because we've had to like fight against oppressive forces. We've had to come together in a way that, and you can see this in other like minority groups and communities, and there's a more of a need to pull together um, and not just as a response to like oppressive forces, and but um, but yeah, there's just a sense of shared experience and joy that um, that is beautiful. Um, yeah, I don't know if it's just the fact that it's a gray day, but I wanted it to be just about the joy aspect, but sometimes it's hard to get away from talking about like the heavier stuff, but because I don't want to ignore it, but also I think sometimes we just need to like you know do our own thing regardless, and not always be reacting to like outside influences, and just vibing to vibe for vibe's sake. But yeah. Um, Another thing is like I I have this feeling. I had this feeling of like having wasted years, and I felt like at one point I felt like, well, the first 18 years of my life before I realized I was trans, that was a bust. That was a life half lived, and not only have I kind of grown out of that mindset and kind of appreciated my childhood for what it was, and um, but it's given me a greater appreciation for the value of time in my life, and it kind of forced me to be myself unapologetically, because I reached a point where I had no other choice, and it forced me to go all out and live life you know with reckless abandon, and yeah, I don't know. There was a time where I definitely hated people calling me resilient, because I just wanted to be happy and just live a normal life. But now I wear that with more pride, like being a testament to like what people um, can get through, and there's like a joy in that, and overcoming the odds, and being like your own hero, and stepping up for yourself, um, despite like the whole world trying to tell you to be something you hate being, or that you're not. And to buck that is pretty admirable, and it takes a lot of resilience um, to go against that. And yeah, I just appreciate how far I've come. I appreciate milestones a lot more, like having made it through, and especially milestones where specifically related to queerness or your like gender, like because you thought that those milestones weren't for this life. Um, yeah, it's it's joyful for sure to make it through and reclaim your sense of self and identity and do that with others as well, like in community. And it's a special and beautiful thing. It's very human, but also um, in its own unique way for queer people. Um, yeah. Another quick thing was like just the kind of lived experience giving me a intimate kind of knowledge of gender roles and dynamics and um, because when you're just in one of these binary roles and it just makes sense for you, you just kind of go with the flow and you don't have to like analyze it on such a deep level. But when it doesn't really, when you're trying to figure out, like carve out like what makes sense for you because the roles that have been carved out for you don't fit, um, you really have to kind of tinker with it, become a gender scientist, and